Okay, recording has started.
All right, thank you so much. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Garst. I am the League of Oregon Cities lobbyist for tax finance and economic development. You're here today for a informational call on the state administration of the local lodging tax. This is something that the league has been working on for quite some time. My predecessor, Wendy Johnson, started this effort really, and took many, many years. I think that the authority for this has been around for a good 5 years anyway, but then the issue came up with how do we fund the computer system upgrades? And she did some work on that in, I believe, the 2019 session, and we finally came up with a solution, and money's been going into a bucket, and the Department of Revenue has been able to do the software upgrades like they had committed to, and so here we are. We're finally at the time when this new option for state administration of the local lodging tax is possible. So today we have not just cities on the call, we also have counties. And with us today is Tyler Jansen. He's one of the government relation managers, lobbyists, I think, over at the Association of Oregon Counties. And Tyler, do you want to give a little welcome to your folks?
Of course, yes. Hi, everybody. For those that I haven't met in person yet, hello, Tyler Jansen. I'm new over at AOC. I'm handling the governance and revenue portfolio over there. I want to echo Mark's sentiments. This is a great opportunity for local governments to have the state do some of the work for you. I'm excited to learn more, and I appreciate everybody who took the time out of a very, very busy week to be here. If there's any county folks on the line who want to talk about this afterwards, you can reach out by email. There's no wrong doors at AOC, and I'm happy to engage further. So thanks for being here.
Great, thanks, Tyler. So we have the Department of Revenue with us today, and they're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. We have Marcus Cridge, who's one of the policy analysts over there, who's going to kind of run through a PowerPoint for us, kind of talk about some of the nuts and bolts of how we're actually going to get this thing stood up, the steps you're going to have to take, some timing, that type of thing. And we'll kind of go through his PowerPoint. We want to keep it somewhat conversational. I'll definitely be asking some questions along the way. And if you have questions during the presentation that you want to get out there, I would encourage you to drop them into the chat. I think that that's probably the best way. And, I've seen the PowerPoint, I kind of know the flow, and I'll try and put some of those questions in kind of as we go. And then when we get to the end of his presentation, we'll have a better time for questions. So, and we'll definitely open it up. You'll be able to unmute yourselves, and we'll allow folks to ask questions directly of, well, whoever you want to ask them of, me, the Department of Revenue, whoever it is. So that's kind of the lay of the land. That's the agenda for today. Again, my name is Mark Garst, and just, kind of full disclosure here, I've been with the league since last October, and before that I was at the Department of Revenue. So these are kind of old buddies of mine from my old stomping ground. So I know that you guys are nice to everybody, but of course I know you'll be nice to the Department of Revenue folks. And it's funny, when Wendy, my predecessor, was working on getting this program, I was actually doing a lot of the negotiation on the Department of Revenue side. So I have definitely sat on both sides of this table at this point. And I think that, what we have is going to be of real help to a lot of folks. So with that, Marcus, if you would like to kick us off, get your PowerPoint up here, and we can kind of get going.
Oops.
There it is. It looks great.
All right. Thanks, Mark. My name is Marcus Cridge. I am a policy analyst over at the Department of Revenue, as Mark said. I've been with the department for a little over 7 years now. So I was fortunate to be one of those folks who worked with Mark before he left the dark side and went to brighter pastures. And I have to give him a little plug. You guys are lucky to have him. But on the other hand, I'm glad he is where he is, because now it's makes for an easier partnership. And I think that'll benefit everyone involved going forward. What we're going to do today is talk about as Mark said, a long-awaited program for local transient lodging tax administration by the state. we have had fairly good success, and some of you most likely are participating in the local administration of the marijuana tax. And so for those of you who have participated or are participating in that program, you should see lots of similarities, because if you have something that's working fairly well, why try to recreate that program? And so that's what we've done with the lodging program, is to try to follow where we can the marijuana tax program for a variety of reasons, some of which we'll touch on as we go through here. But also, like Mark said, this needs to be a conversation, because we are, for those of you who decide to become part of this program, we really are working for you. We are doing the administration work that you had previously done. And so we want to make this program as smooth of a transition, seamless to the taxpayers, and as beneficial to you as local government units. So we definitely want this to continue to grow and expand, and where possible, be improved. So we're looking forward to the conversations with many of you. I know there have been some already. Tira is on the line, and I know she's reached out with many of you about this program. I also have Kelvin, who's also with another policy analyst. So I'll have a few phone a friends available to me if necessary. So unless there's any really early questions, I'm just going to go ahead and start going through this. So what do you need to know? We've tried to outline this PowerPoint to kind of the big rocks. We're not going to get too far down in the weeds. If you have very specific questions, it may be that we need to go back, take a look at what our plans are, what the system programmings are currently, and see if there's something that we need to change before we launch this, or if we can work with you to maybe change a different process. So we've tried to break it down so that it gives us time to chat about the different components of the program. So it was House Bill 2400 that allowed us to enter into agreements for local lodging tax with you. And much of what we do is driven by statute. And so what we are able to provide is the collection activities. As some of you may be aware, we have a fairly robust collection division that has years and years of experience on collecting debt. This would follow those same practices that we use for our other tax programs. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits that we have to offer, is that we have all those things in place with, we're going to have dedicated lodging auditors. So we will have all of the power, so to speak, of the Department of Revenue behind our collection efforts. As you know, collecting on taxes is not just about collection for people who have reported and not paid. There's also what we call filing enforcement. We will make the effort to go out and find those entities that are out there having lodgers stay with them, being paid for that lodging, and not filing at all. We know that they're out there. We hear about this quite a bit. And so that's another thing that I think one of the benefits to us is we're doing that. We would be doing that for not just the local lodging, but we're also doing it on the state lodging tax. And so if we're already doing it on the state, we're going to find places in some of the localities as well that should be added to the tax roll. And then we have our audit teams, very large, robust team of auditors, and lots of experience there that will help us in our collection efforts. What we give back to you is quarterly activity reports. And we're going to talk about what makes up those reports on the next slide. But that should help you with some of your own budgeting, even, because we'll be able to tell you kind of seasonally when you have certain tax revenues coming to you. And then the distribution, which is what everyone's hoping for. And our efforts, of course, would be to increase whatever those distributions you have now by use of these other tools that we have available to us. And
So,
go ahead.
no, go right ahead.
I was just going to say, if anyone wants to go back and look at the legislation, we have included a link there for you to take a look at the bill.
Great. So Marcus, just a couple of questions here.
Sure.
So, I remember from my time at the Department of Revenue that, like you said, pretty robust audit function. And so, you guys have the ability to actually, like if you were dealing with an intermediary, say, you guys have the ability to actually go to their home office, look through their books, do some stuff that local governments really don't have the ability to do. Is that right?
Sure. And I think it's also important to remember that although it shouldn't be this way, when the local intermediary is dealing with the state, we have probably a little more push than just one locality who's trying to get some of these intermediaries to be forthright with all their information. So we have been quite successful at getting these intermediaries to come to the table and play fair. So I think that is a big selling point, Mark, that the intermediaries they know the tools we have available to us, and so they may come to the table a little bit quicker than they would with a smaller unit of government.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Marcus. So we kind of have a question in the chat along those lines from Christine. And it says, for jurisdictions that have bans on short-term vacation rentals, we struggle with third-party affiliates reporting and payment of TLT. I'm curious how the state's going to make sure they're not collecting revenue that was collected illegally. That's kind of an interesting question. You guys don't really look to see whether or not a particular filer is registered with the city, for instance.
Well, we have begun data sharing with as many of the localities as we possibly can. It's very closely related to what we're talking about today, but it is kind of a separate program. And for those who sign up to do the data sharing, even if you're not currently collecting a local tax, you would get that information. Someone in your locality has paid the state tax. So we would be sharing that information with the localities, more likely through the data sharing program.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think we're going to talk a little later about some of the changes that are going to come to filing and, how we're going to move to a more robust data sharing, with address level information, that type of thing. So I'll kind of keep my powder dry on that. But if, folks have questions, there'll be more to come on that. So, and Marcus, I hate to kind of spring questions on you here. And if this is not one that you can answer today, maybe it's something that we can think about. I'm curious how you would treat it if you found a taxpayer, say, so you guys will look, if you guys find somebody who has not been paying when you're doing your filing enforcement, right? You would assess back taxes. Is that correct?
Yes, well? as far as the local ordinances and our state statutes would allow.
Okay. And so that might be, another advantage. I think that, a lot of cities have had trouble collecting those back taxes in cases where they find that someone had been, violating the agreement. They have the authority, but I know that a lot of times in the case of intermediaries, for instance, when they make a city sign a collector agreement, they will say that as part of that agreement, the back taxes have to be waived. You guys don't have collection agreements with the intermediaries. They just file to you as a matter of course, right?
Yeah. Mark, the only caveat I have to, as I sit here and think about this, is that prior to, I'm not sure if we would be allowed to collect taxes prior to an agreement being in place.
Okay.
So this, like a 2019 or 2020 tax that wasn't paid, I'm not sure we'd be able to collect that because we weren't under any agreement to collect those taxes. But if a year from now and they've signed up with us today we find someone who hadn't paid in 2021, that would be a different story.
Okay. And so kind of my last question, I think, on this slide is, cities are they get calls all the time from people kind of letting the city know that their neighbor is, has a rental they're not supposed to
Sure.
have, that type of thing. And they have awareness sometimes that there are, it allows the cities to enforce. Will the cities be able to contact the Department of Revenue and let you know if, there's a lodging provider that they're aware of in their community that maybe isn't
Yep.
paying the tax? Is that kind of information helpful to you guys?
We call those good audit leads.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, without giving away too many secrets, that it wouldn't be the only program where we take leads similar to that and get an auditor involved to see what truly is going on.
Got it. All right. Thanks so much.
Sure. Okay, so this is the data that we currently have planned to distribute in the quarterly activity reports. And when I say currently anticipate, this is where we're going to start. If we get to a point where we actually have the data and the localities in general say, boy, that would be really helpful to some effort that we have here, then it's not impossible to add a data field to any report that we create. So number of returns that were filed, number of returns that were amended, any failure to file assessment that we do. So someone who we think should be reporting and doesn't, you would get that information. We would tell you about the number of audits or adjustments from the quarter. Anyone who claimed an exemption for either all or part of their property on a particular quarter. We'd show you the gross receipts reported by the taxpayer, the local tax due, the tax amount that was actually paid, and then some other demographic data. And this is where we will probably have the ability to add certain things. Like currently we are anticipating doing some of the stuff that's on here. The exemptions would go in there. The type of property, was it a campground? Was it a hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, those kinds of things? We anticipate already including those on our reports. There was some conversation prior as this was being developed that we won't have the data yet, so we wouldn't be able to include it in the report. And that's the number of rooms that were available to rent in a particular quarter. It's things that involve the number of rooms is much more difficult because we just don't have that data coming in yet. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit later is we will be encouraging taxpayers to sign up for an account on Revenue Online because it makes their filing with us so much easier. The more taxpayers we get to sign up on Revenue Online, the more data we can request from them as they go through the sign up. So the reports, the quarterly reports that we start out with, my assumption is that they're just going to grow and become more robust and become more useful to the end users as we get more people involved, more people giving us recommendations, and most importantly, as we actually get to collect more of the data that we just don't have right now. We'll have the cost of the program because there is a cost that the statute requires us to recoup, and then the total dollars amount that we directed to the local government unit. So that's what's currently planned for the quarterly activity report.
So a couple questions have come into the chat here, Marcus. So Chad from Gearhart, will the quarterly activity report also show the address of the property that's paying the TRT? And again, we're going to talk a little bit later about the data exchange, and I know that will be an ability for cities to get that address level information, but will the quarterly activity report include that kind of detail or no?
Yes, provided we have it.
Okay.
Right now it's we don't get that information currently. So as we build up that information, that would be a data piece we could include.
Okay. And then Matt has a question. Has the state contracted with a third-party STR company for auditing operations such as host compliance, Granicus? And there's a little history there, I think. Do you want to share about that, or do you want me to take a stab at that one?
Yeah, you know what, the only thing I'm not sure about is what I'm allowed to share in this particular arena. So why don't you take that, Mark?
So, publicly available information. The legislature did give the Department of Revenue some funding and some authority to contract with one of those companies to get some information. My understanding was that the information that they were going to get was pretty broad, right? So it was it wasn't the kind of detailed address level information that you might be thinking about, Matt. It was more like a big picture kind of numbers, so that the department would have the ability to see what kind of filing we're getting, like whether we're capturing all the money as a state was kind of what they were after. So that's my knowledge of that program, and I don't know how far that's gone, whether you guys have started getting those reports or whatnot, but that was what I remembered.
Yeah, we have entered in an agreement. We are getting reports. It's I think it's fair to say that it's a little more general than we were hoping for. And so we are continuing to work to get into the granular stuff so that it will help us do the type of filing enforcement we want to do. I think it's fair to say that.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And really the Department of Revenue is in a little bit different situation than cities, right? And so when the Department of Revenue wants that kind of information, what they're going to do is do an audit. And like I said, they may fly out to somebody's headquarters. They are going to look through their books. And so that's how they get that address level information really from the company, is they go right to the source and they get that, they go through their books, and that, and then they can compare it to what they filed, because currently they're filing as a lump. We're going to talk about the changes that are coming to filing, but currently they file with the state as a lump sum. And so the way that they make sure that that lump sum is accurate is that they go in and they do, audits of companies periodically. And the Department of Revenue did just get budget authority for an additional auditor to work on this program, and others, I think, but another auditor in the team that works on this program. And I understand that hiring is kind of underway right now. So that'll be another resource that they'll have. I'm going to hold, Linda, I see your question. I'm going to hold that one. Peter, I see yours. That's going to be a little bit later. And Seth, you want to talk about the cost as well. We'll get to the cost here down the road. So let's go ahead and pick it back up, Marcus.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so what is it going to take to actually get rolling with the state doing the administration? The first thing we'll be doing is, for those who have already contacted Tiara, and her email address is right there. She's created a list of people who have expressed interest. Next week, we'll be sending out our IGA. So that will actually, so much of what we're talking about today, it will actually be included in more of a contractual agreement with more legal terminology than what I feel comfortable using. So those frequently bring up questions, and we anticipate it, we expect it as part of the process, and we'll work through it. Most, like I said previously, if you have started having the department do your marijuana local tax administration, it's not going to look much different. In fact, you'll see it's very, very similar. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise to you or your attorneys or whoever you have review them. Most of the contents in there are pretty boilerplate, pretty straightforward, with just allowing us to share information when we can share information, when we can't, security requirements, those kinds of things are all in this IGA. The next step along the line, if you want to proceed after seeing the IGA, is that there are some local ordinance issues that frequently crop up when we try to do local administration of a local tax of any kind. Because we can't run our program if your local ordinances prohibit those activities. Now, I know Mark said that at one point there was a kind of an effort from the league to help cities who were interested in modifying their ordinances to make them a little more in line with the states. And so that hopefully a lot of this work has already been accomplished. We're happy to work with you on those same issues and see where, if any place, the local ordinances need to be changed. Some of the areas that we run into frequently are, the penalty and interest allowances that we have at the state will need to be the same at the local level. Same with assessment and audits and collections. One of the other challenges we have is that we've come across some ordinances where the city treasurer was named specifically in the ordinance as the person who was to be paid the tax. So that creates a problem because we can't come in and say, well, I know what the ordinance says, but go ahead and pay the state instead of the city treasurer or whoever that individual named in the ordinance may be. Now, many cities also have in place, they'll say city treasurer or their designee or their assignee, and that helps a long way to allow us to come in and do it. But for those rare circumstances where it just specifically says the city treasurer or whoever the person may be, that creates a problem because that means they technically, if they wanted to challenge it in court, they weren't required to pay us. They were required to pay the city treasurer. But we'll take a look at all those things. The league has a really good, strong guide out there that gives kind of a model to follow. And if you're considering this program and you haven't gone through this process with marijuana, I strongly suggest you go out and you review that publication that the League of Cities has out there.
So Marcus, a couple questions have come in that I think kind of fit in here around the local ordinances. So we have two taxes. This is from Linda. We have two taxes, general lodging room tax with a percentage fee. We also have a heads and bed tax that's a fixed amount of $1.50 per night per room rented and 50 cents per night for RV space rented. Would you be able to handle this heads and bed tax as well? And I'm guessing that's probably not going to happen.
Well, I would certainly not want to try to answer that today because I don't know. It's not the way we've been working on the programming of the system. Does that mean it can't happen? Without going back and talking to our programming folks, I wouldn't want to answer, but I'd be happy to get back to you on that.
Marcus,
So
may
Linda,
I answer?
Go ahead, Tira.
So this is Tira Lum, and she is kind of one of the administrative policy pros also over at the Department of Revenue. Go right ahead.
We do have the ability to enter a flat rate. So if you have a set rate for a specific issue, we can enter the flat rate. And we also have the ability to enter a percentage rate. So we should be able to accommodate both rates within the quarterly returns.
Okay.
We haven't tested it yet, but we should be able to do that.
Okay, that's interesting information. And Tira, I don't know if you saw, but this is $1.50 for a room and 50 nights for an RV space. So that might complicate things a little bit. So
that would
this
definitely complicate it, but we'll try. We will do our best and we'll run that in our scenarios.
So Linda, you see that Tira's email is there, tira.l.lum@oregon.gov, and you might give her an email and kind of follow up on that one. Peter's asking about the cost. We're going to hit that, as is Seth. We'll hit it. Bob Barron says, in addition to the 9% TOT fee, Salem also collects a 2% TPA tourism promotion area fee on behalf of local destination marketing organizations. Would the DOR be amenable to collecting our 2% TPA fee as well? It's based on the exact same numbers as the transient room tax.
So we'd be collecting 11% and then have to just make sure the distribution or the reporting took 2 of it and put it in one bucket and 9 in another. Without having a programmer here, that to me does not sound like a terribly complex programming issue that we couldn't get past. But it's something that I'll ask and get back to be sure. But it doesn't sound like it's something that would be too difficult to do.
Okay, yeah, and so Bob, I would definitely encourage you to kind of follow up with them, and it might, it'll be looking at those ordinances, how they're written, that type of thing, I think is, what you'll be wanting to look at. Okay, and then here's Kathleen. We require the larger entities to pay monthly and the smaller are allowed to pay monthly. I'm guessing that she means quarterly. Can this still happen, or will all entities only file quarterly? You're going to talk about filing in a little bit, right?
Right.
And it's quarterly filing that you guys do?
It's a quarterly filing with us.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, and then Mayor Jones here, can you offer an example of a local ordinance that limits your ability to collect these taxes for us? And I think that, you had mentioned one where the ordinance maybe specifies that the treasurer collects. I think that there could be issues if you have particular exemptions in your ordinance that don't line up with what's allowed under the state statutes. I could see that complicating things a little bit. Do you have other thoughts?
We've actually found them to be as simple as there being an ordinance that prohibits penalty and interest from being charged on late filings. So it keeps taking away tools from us, and additionally, it would be administratively nearly impossible if we had 100 localities, each with their own twist on penalties and interest. So that's why many localities have adopted our 305 and 314. They just made a tie directly to our penalty and interest statutes, so that we can just implement the same program we have with all of our other tax programs.
Okay, and then Seth, we produce an ordinance guideline for key elements that need to be aligned with DOR policy. And Seth, we have the in the League of Oregon Cities Guide to Collecting Lodging Taxes, which there's a link at the end of this presentation, and we'll certainly make sure that it gets linked to on the website. It's under reference, I think, on the LOC website now. We have a model ordinance, and we think that ordinance is like 95% there, if not 100%. DOR's still looking at that a little bit. If there's any issue, it's going to be on the far out collection end. And so if you even had an ordinance now that aligned with what's in the LOC guide, we don't think it would necessarily prohibit you to sign up for the program, but you still might want to get it exactly dialed in. And the Department of Revenue will really kind of help you look at that specifically and make any of those changes that need to be made. They have collection authority that local governments maybe don't have or use or have in their ordinances, and so that kind of thing I think is where you might have some differences with what's in the model ordinance in the League of Oregon Cities publication. Is that fair, Marcus?
Yes. Yes, and we will. I mean, that's one of the things that we would do for anyone who started in, is to work with you with those ordinances. It's just part of the process, really. I wouldn't look at it necessarily as a prohibited in any way. It's just part of the process.
Okay, and Matt dropped in the LOC link into the chat, and I'm getting behind on the chat. So there are 12 here, and we may need to. So here's one from Ron Harker. Our city code requires the TLT be charged for the first 45 days of stay. My understanding is the state's requirement on the first 30 days. Would the city have to change its code to mirror the state? And I think that probably is. I'm not sure about that. I don't know about that. Marcus, do you have a thought?
Well, I'm trying to work this through on the fly. So if the county or city is saying they don't get charged until the 40 or not, they don't get charged until after 45 days, or they have to have 45 days of rental before they get charged anything.
So I think it's even a little different than that. I think that if I'm reading this correctly, and we don't have to go too far down this road, but my understanding is that on the state transient lodging tax, if you stay in the same spot for more than 30 days, then you're not considered transient and you're not required to pay the TLT. And Kelvin's nodding. And here, if you stay for 180 days, they still want you to pay on the first 45 days of the stay. And so that is complicated and maybe not a question that we're going to be able to answer today, Ron, unfortunately.
We'd have to take a really close look at that, see how far it complicates our program.
Yeah. And that state exemption on the 30 days, I don't know if that is meant to apply only to the state transient lodging tax or whether it's also meant to apply to the local. So that would be something that I would want to run down anyway on that question.
I need to take a look at that as well.
All right, well, we are caught up for the most part on our chat questions, except for a couple that we'll get to on the cost to administer the program and a filing question. So let's go ahead. I will quit needling you for now.
Okay, so then the final really stage of the process is you submit the completed IGA to DOR. DOR staff will register your locality as part of the program. We will reach out to your taxpayers. Now, I think we all know that won't immediately eliminate the questions that come in to the local offices. It will be an educational period, but we will also be working with them, letting them know, go to the website, see if your locality is participating in the program. If it is, this is the way you need to file from now on. And so, of course, there's going to be a learning curve for everybody, but eventually all, the lodging tax questions will also transfer to Department of Revenue. So that's another burden that we think will be beneficial to the localities. So now we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about timing. We will start receiving people to sign up in the first quarter. We will administer the first day of the quarter after the quarter in which a locality signs up. So for example, if someone finalized the IGA in March of this year, we will start administering the tax in the second quarter of 2021 for returns due in July of 2021. So that's why we still have time to work on our reporting, some of our collection ordinances, some of the things that are down the road, because if you were able to get the IGA through your review team and back to us in the next 2 months, we're still not going to be receiving a return from you until July of 2021. So we still have time to do all the development that we need to do.
And Marcus, it may be really clear to people, but I'm just going to kind of restate it to make sure I get it. We're dealing with finance folks. They all understand working, in arrears and filing deadlines and all that. But if I were to get signed up by March, then you would start collecting for the following quarter, which would be April 1. So you would basically be responsible for getting the tax from April 1 on, but those returns would not be filed until the following quarter. So they'd be filed in July. For April, May, and June taxes.
Correct.
So that is the quickest that someone now could get signed up.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's the timing question that a lot of folks have asked. Okay.
All right. So I guess there's been a lot of questions. So cost is a little bit tricky in these first couple of years. The statute requires Department of Revenue to collect their costs from the program. And the way we've always done this in the past is we have our costs, we have the number of participants, we divide the cost by the number of participants, and that's the annual fee broken down into quarters that we charge. Because we have other local administration, because we have a lot of the pieces in place, we are anticipating being able to keep our costs pretty low. I mean, we do have an auditor. We'll have some policy work. We'll have some forms to work on every year, but our intent is to keep this low because we want as many participants as possible. But that kind of drives the other thing. The more participants that there are, the lower the cost will be. And we'll review this as we do with marijuana on an annual basis. Now, to start out, we know we're not going to peak in March. We're not probably going to peak even for signups in the second quarter because review of the IGA takes time. Changing ordinances may take time. We are going to be able to demonstrate that we are anticipating in the future how we will collect all of our costs. But for this first year, it's capped at $175 per filer. I'm guessing the end of next week, we will have a firm dollar amount for calendar year 2021 per filer fee. It almost certainly will be less than $175. I wish I could give you the exact number right now, but we just haven't reached the point of being able to demonstrate that we're attempting to recover our costs while enticing people to sign up early and knowing that we're not going to get to kind of the anticipated number of participants in these first couple quarters. So I know that that's not the exact answer, but I hope the message kind of came through about what we're going to do the best we can, because we want to entice people, especially early going, because it will work out a lot of any hiccups that are out there. And we want people involved in this program. So we will be efforting to keep that cost as low as we possibly can and still do our statutory duty to demonstrate we're collecting our expenses.
Okay, and we got people in the chat just like reading my mind here. So I'm going to start with Susan's question. Do online intermediaries each count as one filer, regardless of how many properties / addresses they may be filing on behalf of?
No, it's per property.
It's per filer, I thought.
Per filer.
Yeah, so they are one, correct? An intermediary would count as one.
Let me reach out to my team here.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, yeah, and that's how I understood it from our previous conversation. And so, getting into some of these other questions, if you had somebody who only files a couple times a year, for very small, short amount of time, short stay, that number sounds too high, right? But when you factor in that your VRBO is one, Airbnb is one, and they have hundreds of properties or thousands, I don't know how many they have in your jurisdiction. So when you kind of average it out, it may not be as scary as that 175 might be if you kind of look worst case. And then there was another question that I won't make Marcus answer today, but I certainly hope that he'll think about it. And this comes from Shannon. And she says, are those fees per filer still fully collected if a property or the total contract generates less than the fee and revenue? If the hospitality industry doesn't recover, what's the risk for communities losing money on the contract? And so that I think is, again, I'm not going to make you answer that. If you want to answer it, I won't hold you to it. But I think that that's an interesting question. If there should be some kind of de minimis somehow, or at least some acknowledgement that you won't send a bill to communities rather than a distribution. So I think something, maybe a point for further conversation, unless you want to take a stab at it.
No, what I would like is I want to make sure I'm understanding the question. So the tax that we are able to collect is less than the whatever per filer fee we calculate that we would have removed from the distribution, but it would have taken the distribution into the red.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. I need to take that back. It's,
Marcus,
yes.
we have already determined that with a short pay, I believe finance had indicated we would pick it up within the next quarter. We would not be billing the local government back. We would look at the next quarter and say, okay, do we have enough now?
Yes. So the question that we will discuss is if a very small locality with very few rental properties is basically getting out of the rental business, but was holding on for a couple of quarters, would we ever bill them? We'll talk about it. How about that?
I appreciate that. And I think where it would happen is if you had a jurisdiction where that market, they weren't using Airbnb that much. Maybe they have a lot of people who are individually, doing units themselves and are paying the tax themselves, not paying through the Airbnb, who generally collects now for their clients. So that's a conversation to continue. And then Mark asks, per filer means if I have 10 entities that make quarterly payment, my admin cost would be $1,750. And I'll say maximum per year.
Right. That we had to come up with a number, or we couldn't even have conversations. So what we tried to do is just come out with a cap. It's not going to be any higher than this. We will have the exact number soon, but 175 is our cap this year. But yes, the math was correct from Mark.
And Matt is running some numbers, and I will, he says and I'm not going to confirm these certainly, but on 9% TLT, they'd have to make 483 in revenue to break even, right? And that, I guess it really per quarter. So, I think that there are some variables in there that would, obviously it matters how many filers you have. Maybe he's assuming the 10 that was mentioned above, but it's not, I can see a world where some of these don't break even on a per filer basis. But again, if you have Airbnb who's operating and doing a lot, then, so this is a conversation. And the Department of Revenue has made it very clear that they really want, to encourage people to sign up for this program. And, for the league's part, and I don't want to speak for Tyler, but probably for the counties too, it's in everybody's interest if we get more people to sign up, because that will drive down that cost on a per filer basis. So that is really kind of what we would like to see happen. So we'll continue this conversation, and folks are welcome to reach out to me offline and let me know if I'm setting you up for a really terrible deal here or something like that. We can keep this conversation going. But again, that 175 is the maximum. And, I think that what folks have found on marijuana, and people are welcome to correct me online on the chat if they want, but I think that people have found that the Department of Revenue has been pretty reasonable on their administrative fees on revenue on marijuana. And again, they only have the authority to collect their actual costs. It's not like they can turn this into a profit center where, they can, they're pretty conservative in how they're going to figure out what that cost is. There will be a little bit of overhead for, like some of the items that Marcus mentioned, but the bottom line is that it's going to be reflective of what it actually costs them to administer this part of the program. So
yeah, that's the exact point that I was going to make, Mark. We just don't know, because we don't know how many people are going to sign up, how much resource is going to be used. So we're going to have to come up with the best guess, make it enticing for people to join. Hopefully enough people will join so that cost will rarely be a concern or prohibit someone from entering into this, because this is not a fee generating program for the state. It's simply, we're collecting only what it costs us to actually administer. And in theory anyway, I mean, the whole reason why we're doing this is one established organization administering for the state should be less expensive than having, 100 people across the state in the different government units trying to do the same thing without the kind of the foundation that Department of Revenue already has.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll kind of throw in the mix is, the Department of Revenue has the Department of Justice behind it. And so, you get the advantage of not possibly getting yourself into a one jurisdiction like litigation nightmare, which, some of our folks have experienced a little bit. And so, here all that stuff on the back end would be handled by DOR and their partners at the state attorney general's office. So Susan kind of just makes the point that it seems like it will go down as more agencies come on board, and we think that's definitely true. And then Seth asks, will hotels still retain an administrative fee?
I'm not understanding the question. What, retain an administrative fee for administering the tax?
Yeah, there's a statutory ability for certain filers to, and I didn't think it was hotels as much as it was intermediaries. I thought that they got like a little slice, and that was actually how we paid to stand up this program, was that they had to give up for a certain period of time. They had to give up that administrative fee that they had otherwise been able to collect. Yeah. And that's the money that went into getting this computer system upgraded. And my understanding, my recollection, and this is loose, Seth, so do not take this to the bank, but my recollection is that it was going to go back to where they got to keep that administrative fee again down the road. But again, I'm not sure that it was hotels actually. And so maybe some follow up on that one. Oh, Tiara unmuted. Oh, Kelvin unmuted. All right.
It's the tax. It's that whoever's collecting the tax is allowed to.
Right.
Yeah, there's a function of state law that allows a collector reimbursement charge. And if there is an increase in the local transient lodging tax rate, I think there's some alignment that the localities have to do with that state law. So if that's the admin fee we're talking about, that's already a requirement in there, and we'll be able to accommodate whatever collector reimbursement charge that the city allows as a fixed rate. And Tara can correct me if I'm wrong, but we want to make sure that the ordinance, at least at a minimum, aligns with what's required by that state statute.
And yes, Kelvin, you are correct. So everyone is allowed the administrative fee aside from the TLIs for the 2-year period that we are reclaiming the cost of the program. And then, yes, they will be allowed to reclaim that administrative fee, but it will be set per local government. So our computer registration will allow us to enter that administrative fee for the local government. If you have one, yay. If you don't, fine. It will be part of our programmed registration.
Great. Thank you. And okay, and so one more question here, and then I'll let you move on, Marcus, I promise. April's asking, would all the taxes be distributed to the city, who would then send them out for the tourism related purposes that cities are required to spend a portion of their transient lodging tax on? Or would the Department of Revenue distribute directly to those like tourism promotion agencies? And
my understanding is the current programming is for a disbursement to the city.
Okay.
That not recognizing that each locality may have their own disbursements from there. I again would have to go back to programming and see, what kind of an expense would that add on to everything to try to go by locality and have multiple disbursements.
And I think it probably, makes more sense that it happens that way, frankly, just because, some cities spend a portion of those tourism promotion dollars on their own, so it's not like it's always 70-30 exactly or whatever.
Okay.
So it really depends on it's jurisdiction by jurisdiction, how much of that money has to go to tourism. And then, you know, what the definition of tourism promotion and tourism related facilities is really, I think, more of a legal issue, obviously, for the local jurisdictions to figure out. And so I think probably what we want is for it to happen this way, where it just goes to the cities. But certainly something, April, that we can address if you want to reach out to the Department of Revenue and talk about that. Do you want to go ahead and move on from this topic, which I knew would be popular?
Okay, filing. So the key here that we have to walk away with is don't look for anything different until a week and a half from now. So any fourth quarter 2020 filing that has not taken place yet will be the same way you did third quarter. Okay, we are making changes, but we don't want to confuse the issue by having people try to jump ahead and use the new form for the last quarter of 2020. So anything that relates to a 2020 filing needs to be on the forms that are out there now.
And so just for the cities and counties here, this is just a message. You're about to hear how the filing is going to change. Don't share that right now with your providers, because you will just confuse them. The Department of Revenue will do extensive communication to these providers about their new filing requirements, but not yet, not until after they finish this current quarter's filing. They want to get that done cleanly, and then they'll let people know about the new requirements. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. We will be sending out information to everyone we have identified as a provider, telling them about the new forms and letting them know that they need to start looking at our computer system to find out if their locality has decided to participate in state administration. Our form will go from OR SLT, which is state lodging tax, to OR TLT, Oregon Transient Lodging Tax. And it will include components for both state and local tax to be collected. Now, not all localities are going to join this program. We know that. The form is designed so that it should be obvious that if you're not part of the program, you still need to go and file with your local government, however you did it in the past. But for those who are in a combined locality, it should be a little bit easier, because now instead of having to file your lodging tax in two different places, you can do it all in one form, one payment, send it through in one mechanism. So we're hoping that also creates some efficiencies for your providers as well. So it will be Form ORTLT, and it'll have two schedules involved, depending on if you're a participating locality or not. One of the biggest changes is that each property needs to have its own address labeled on the return. Correct, Tira? I want to make sure I get those terms used correct.
The TLT2 is facility for street address, county, city, zip code regions.
This kind of goes back to what we were talking about on reports. We need that data to give you efficient reports. So we will, that will be new to providers. So you may, I don't know if they call you directly when they're angry with us, but you may hear occasionally from people saying, why do I have to provide all this information? Well, it's because we're trying to eventually have the data source that can make all these programs work much better. So until next month, everything will look exactly the same. Our webpage, our forms, all of our communications will all be based on the existing process. Once February comes around, we'll get the communications out to all the providers, and we'll start changing everything so that it's the new filing process and form. Question?
Okay. So I just want to kind of talk about this for a second. This is like kind of I mean, holy grail is probably too strong, but this is something that a lot of local jurisdictions have been after for a really long time, is this address level information about, providers. And so I want to make the point, first of all, that, it is going to be a little bit of a pain for people filing, especially at first. But, the department is obviously working on ways that you'll be able to kind of import data into their returns. So hopefully we won't have a situation where people are having to key, many properties. Certainly, I do not anticipate that Airbnb will be keying in each of their individual properties that are located in Oregon. But this information is critical, right? Because they have a property in Bend, they have a property on the coast, and they have to make sure that in each of those places that assuming that you've signed up, that they are collecting the state lodging tax, any county lodging tax, and any city lodging tax. And so that's why that address level information has to be there. Now, I want people to sign up, right? But at the same time, this is a big benefit even to jurisdictions that don't sign up, okay? The Department of Revenue currently has a data exchange process where you share information with them and they'll share information with you. And it's all around tax, right? You're not supposed to use this information for other purposes, and you'll have to sign something to that effect if you sign up for this data exchange program. But currently, we don't have that address level information on the data exchange. And after this filing change, it's going to start appearing on there. And so that's just huge. That's a game changer, even for folks. Again, we want you to sign up, but even for folks who don't sign up, this is going to be great information for you. You can still sign up for the data exchange without signing up for local collection. So, so for those of you who didn't think you were going to get anything out of this call, maybe you just got something. I don't know. So we have a question. Will your system properly distinguish jurisdictions if the address based on zip code appears to belong to different jurisdiction? For instance, our geographic boundaries in Gresham include Portland mailing addresses / zip codes. So I don't know if we have the folks on the phone to answer that question necessarily. We probably do. I don't.
Well, I can tell you what I know is that we're testing all those exact issues. The geocoding of the data that we receive is going through testing, and we believe we are going to be able to do exactly what that question was. I can't tell you, I don't believe we can tell you with 100% surety today. We will before anyone has to make it official with their sign up, because I appreciate that, especially for places in and around the Portland Metro where those lines may be a little blurry, that it's a bigger deal than somewhere a little more isolated where over the city line, in the city line isn't quite as unknown.
And maybe just something that you want to, work with as you sign up for the program. You just want to work with Department of Revenue and make sure that, that those shape files that they're using in their system are accurate or whatever. I imagine that they will be,
Mark,
Go ahead.
One of the things I did want to say, so some of the resources we currently show on the Department of Revenue website is the region zip code directory. So it is important that that is maintained, because that is one of the factors we will use when it comes to the address level. So when they provide their address on the return, the facility address, they're required to verify that address. So if the address has already been within the Gentax system and verified, we will accept it. If it hasn't, that address will then go to an as entered, and we will accept the return as entered. And then all as entered addresses will be sent to our cartography unit. We haven't determined the exchange process yet. We were thinking monthly, but again, we have no clue of the volume of unverified addresses, but then they will run the addresses and try to get the absolute verified source within Gentax so that the next filing, it is now a true verified address. But we will be basing it off of that current list that we retain within our website of the region to zip code document. That's
Okay.
what we're driving things from, is that document. So if people have changes, like we get updates every now and then of new zip codes or regional changes, we update that document.
And including split zip codes is the question that we have here. So,
And so far, that document is never entered into a split zip code.
We're going to have to take a look at that, Mark. If people are indicating that a city tax, for example, includes some split zip codes, that's something we're going to have to take a look at.
okay, so yeah, so there's one to kind of run down, but 97230, it apparently says Portland, but is physically Gresham. Here's another question that we got. How do we sign up for the data exchange program? This is from Janet.
Send me an email.
Okay, so
Thank you, Tara.
and then Mark asks, cities in Washington County have or may have a local TLT in addition to the county TLT, which is partly shared with the city generating TLT. Would this program be able to manage the division of revenues according to our local ordinances and county agreements? So, so again, you guys will have the ability to put both a county and city tax on.
Correct.
Correct.
And then if the county tax, if I'm reading this right, is supposed to go partly to the cities, that is a question that you guys can have, a conversation that you guys can have, but generally it's maybe you can do it, you think?
It you know, if this is something that changes on a monthly basis, how much the county is willing to give the city and things like that, those get more difficult to administer. If it's set for a while, then, and you know, that's just that, again, to me, we will get a definitive answer, but to me, that's not real difficult programming to say you're collecting a 4% county tax, 2% of the 10% of the 4% collected goes to the city. That's not, that shouldn't be problematic, but
I like it. You guys are so can do. I mean, worst case, you write a check to the county and then they write a check to the city. So I think that one way or the other, Mark, I think that probably could work out. Beaverton has the same issue as Gresham regarding zip codes, doesn't accurately identify city boundaries. Really, we don't have the cartographers on, and I think that the department works with shapefiles probably like everybody else in the world. And so I imagine that will have the right lines for your tax. I think that that's something that we definitely will have to run down. If the city is here's a good one. What happens if the city is participating, but the county is not? So they both have a transient lodging tax. One of the entities decides to do it and one of them doesn't. How does that work?
well, I think we would almost be blind to unless it's one of these where there's supposed to be a split and we're doing the county and we're supposed to send money to the city, that's going to get kind of funky. But if it's just the state, or if it's just the city tax and there also happens to be a county tax and they want their taxpayers to send the department and the county a check, we would kind of be blind to that county tax amount. And so it shouldn't affect our arrangement with the city at all.
And on the filing side, I'm envisioning, I'm just guessing here, that if a city is not signed up and somebody goes on to pay their state lodging tax, there's not going to be any ability for them to pay the city tax, right?
No, because the city won't be registered in the program.
Okay. And so similarly, if the city were registered and someone could go into the system and pay their state lodging tax and their city tax, but the county were not registered, they just wouldn't be able to pay the county tax.
Correct.
Okay. So you can only pay on the system for the systems that are for the folks that signed up. Okay, now Matt, this is probably my favorite question so far. Can the Department of Revenue also run our tourism program for us? That would be full service. So you guys ready to take that on?
Well, I'm a bus driver too, so if any of you guys need some bus driving assistance, I'm on my way.
Yeah. I don't think we want the Department of Revenue running our tourism, actually. I don't think that it's something that gets a lot of people to want to move to our state necessarily. It's
Hey.
Oregon state tax policy, certainly not our property tax system. All right, so this is good. I think we have gotten through the questions that are in the chat, and anyone is welcome. If we didn't get to your question in the chat, you're certainly welcome to enter a question, or you're welcome. Oh, Marcus, were you done with the slide? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Do you want to finish up before I start?
Yeah, let me just
for questions.
This has been great. These exchange of ideas, exchange of, okay, we've got zip code things we need to look at. This is all fantastic stuff, and we don't want it to stop just because our Zoom meeting ended. Okay, especially for those of you who are really interested in participating, we want to hear your concerns. We want to hear where you think you'll be challenged. We want to keep this conversation going. So if you decide not to participate, we still need certain information from you. And I know Tira's been working with many of you to collect this information, and I just strongly encourage you to get it to her so that we can continue to build this database. We've already mentioned the league's document. I strongly encourage those of you who are considering this to go take a look. This is our program. It's called Special Programs Administration, but it's spa.help@oregon.gov. You can send questions there. There's a phone bank that you can call in. We have website information. And then you can always go through the general tax information avenues as well. And then if you're really desperate, can't find any answers anywhere else, I did include my email address on there, and I'm happy to get with people and work on answers for any of these kinds of questions. So I really appreciate the attendance. It's great. We're really excited to launch this program, and I hope this is encouraged as opposed to discouraged anyone from doing that.
Okay, Marcus, I really appreciate this, and we're not done yet. Obviously, I think we're gonna give folks an opportunity to ask questions. So just give people a second here to jot down any of these, emails that they're looking for. Yet to answer the question in the chat, yes, the presentation will be available on the League of Oregon Cities website Monday, I imagine. Tyler will have a link that he can forward to folks, or he can probably just mirror whatever we put up on the AOC site as well. But we'll include the contact information. We'll include a recording of the presentation. We'll include a link to the local transient lodging tax collection guide that the league puts together, which includes that model ordinance as like Appendix A, I think. Tyler, were you gonna hop in?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to echo your points there. I'm happy to throw this up on our site, and I'm going to get it out to our members as well. So yeah, no wrong doors.
Okay, so Marcus, can you unshare maybe your screen so that we can get back to kind of seeing the broader, there we go. All right, there's everybody. Okay, so now is your opportunity if you want to ask a question of the Department of Revenue, if you want to stump the presenter or however you want to do it, you are certainly welcome to hop up here or hop on and go ahead and ask a question. Christine, and you can unmute, and I think that if you unmute and maybe put your hand up, put your hand up icon, I think it'll pop you up to the top of the list. But if I'm not acknowledging you and you're trying to get in here, definitely let me know. And if you're having any trouble, put that in the chat and we'll fix it. Christine asks, will there be a dashboard to view real-time data on our jurisdiction in between quarterly activity reports? That would be nice, but answer?
Not yet.
Probably not.
Right.
And then there are some nice thank yous in here. Appreciate the work of DOR to get this information together. And we'll, yeah. that, yeah, will not go without saying.
Oh, you're
So,
just gonna gloss over those, huh? Thanks a lot, Mark.
there's a lot of them. I can only read so much, man. If April to June will be filed in July, when would the funds get distributed? That's a good one.
Sorry, searching for my unmute. Yeah, our target is for the reports and the distribution to occur within 45 days of the end of the quarter.
Quarterly distributions, right?
I'm sorry, from the filing. 45
Okay.
days from the filing.
Okay. Chris, you want to ask a question here?
Yeah, thanks. I think this is going both to Marcus and to Mark. A little confusion on the ordinance. So in Philomath, we looked at implementing an ordinance last year and put hold on it because we were waiting for this Department of Revenue program to come out that we heard about. And so we've got kind of a sample ordinance. I think we mostly took it off of the model ordinance that the leagues put out. But it seems like there's maybe a little bit of confusion still on, is that in fact a model ordinance that Department of Revenue is going to be good with for this program? Can Department of Revenue maybe take a closer look at that for cities that don't already have ordinances in place? Because I hate to get an ordinance in place and then find out, a week later that we need to make changes to it and have to run through that process again. So is that something Department of Revenue can do in the next, month or so that we can just take on one ordinance to the city council and get that approved?
Can I take a stab at it, Marcus?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so we think that we're there, honestly, with what's in the TLT guide.
Yeah.
Department of Revenue maybe doesn't 100% agree. They're still kind of working on it, right? And so if there is a problem, it's going to be on that extreme collection end. But I think that the answer is that you can if you want to sign up for this program, I think that the Department of Revenue will take a look at your individual ordinance. And I think that goes pretty much for everybody. And so they will identify any issues, I think, at that time with what it is that you guys are proposing. But if you're, and as changes happen, right, as Department of Revenue does its review, obviously, if there are things that we recognize at that point that actually are in the model ordinance that don't really work, we want to know that at the league, and we want to fix our ordinance, just like you suggested, Chris, and get, the best ordinance that we can in the TLT guide. But that ordinance has been written to match up with state statute exactly. And so we would, we're hopeful that if we identify problems, they'll be small. If you've implemented the LOC model ordinance, you may be able to sign up with that. It may be that before Department of Revenue starts doing collection down the road, they may ask you to make a little tweak, just a small amendment on the collection side to, if you have a different penalty rate, that obviously is not going to work. They need to have the same penalty rates that the state has. And those are the kind of things, but up front, I think you might still be able to get signed up, but work with the department on your specific ordinance and they'll help you out. How did I do, Marcus?
Perfect. You hit all the points that I was going to make.
Okay. Mike, you're unmuted. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Speak up. We can hear you though.
Okay. The city of Newport does have a requirement for the VRDs to operate. They have to operate a minimum of 30 days per year. And that data is something that we have been collecting. So are we going to be able to do that? Is DOR going to be able to handle that for us? Or do we have to change our ordinance?
Yeah, and so I'll just kind of restate it. Some local jurisdictions have a limit on the number of people who can operate these facilities in their community. And they want to make sure that those people are actually using it if they're going to get one of those limited number of licenses. And so here, unless you have at least 30 days a year, you're not going to get the license the next year. And I think that that's kind of what they're looking at. So we know that the data exchange information is going to be address level. Will it include the number of days that someone uses the facility as well? Or will it just be the address and the amount of tax collected? That I don't know. And thank you for reminding me of that question, Mike. You submitted it in advance. I appreciate that.
I actually can't speak to the data exchange. I don't know that program well enough. Maybe Tira can speak to it, but for the quarterly reports for local tax administration, we will have the number of days on the report. So I'm not sure about I'll have to get back to you on the data exchange, what all is included in what data we share out.
We do share the rate of booking. So yes, the number of days that a facility was booked or vacant, that is part of the data exchange. We have a lot of data. Every part of the state lodging tax return is currently mapped to provide data exchange.
Okay, a couple more questions in the chat. Matt is on a roll now. Will we earn interest on the money held by DOR during those 45 days? Yeah, no, I don't think you will. Can we see the DOR website if our county is participating? I work for a city. Can we see on the DOR website if our county is participating? So right now, nobody's participating, obviously. Nobody signed up. But down the road, will there be like a list of all the participating jurisdictions on the department's website?
There will be, because that's where we're going to also send taxpayers to see if their jurisdiction is participating or not. So there will be the complete list of all participants.
Our expectation will be to list all the participating localities and to provide the tax rates and admin fees, but not provide contact information. And then the website will also hold a next list of non-participating localities so that the taxpayer could do a reach out and actually have contact information of the non-participating. So you can call a non-participating, but we won't provide information to call a participating, but it will all show on their website.
Okay, and that's a good point. And, Tier had asked if folks could even reach out, even if they're not going to use DOR to administer. But here's why it's an advantage to you. There's going to be a list of all the jurisdictions on the DOR website who are not participating. So folks will know they're going on the DOR website anyway to sign up to pay their state tax. This will be a list where they'll know they need to go and contact you if you're not going to use the DOR. So that's that's good information for why folks should definitely share that. Matt's got another one. This is a good one. Can the DOR fees come out of the tourism restricted portion of the TLT versus the general use portion? And that, I'm going to say, is definitely a question for your city attorney. And but that's an interesting question. I'm not even going to take a stab at it. But I think that's actually kind of an interesting question. Thomas, I'm sorry. I see that you have got your hand up. Why don't you go right ahead?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm here in Astoria, and we've come up with some good licensing. We've been working on enforcement, and we're mostly concerned about third-party Airbnb sort of platforms. And you have an individual that advertises on Airbnb, but they're not licensed with the city. That's the sort of data we're trying to locate those people sometimes. So my question is maybe twofold. With the data exchange, would that be the type of relevant information that, and I've heard you sort of generally talk about this, but down the line that you'll have these addresses of Airbnb units that are on their platform, that we will be able to also get that information. And along with that, when you have the data exchange, if we sign up just for we have a pretty good collection system going. We're quarterly, we're collecting from all our hotels nicely. Our areas, again, are more the third party of concern. So for the data exchange, is there going to be a cost to us to sign up for just data as well? And then just a comment to finish everything. I do like the idea that it's sort of a one place to pay for everything. So for our hotels they just have to, instead of paying the city, the county, and the state, they just pay to the state. It simplifies it for them, I would think. That's it.
Yeah.
See where I can go with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that this actually could make things easier on taxpayers. To answer your first question, yes. If you sign up for that data exchange, that address level information from the intermediaries will be available to you. To answer your second question, I don't think there's a cost to sign up for the data exchange, but you have to give them your information as well, right?
There is no cost for the data exchange, but we do require the It is a opt-in agreement that is a paper form, and we do require a secrecy certificate for all who might have any access to the data we submit, that we exchange.
Yeah. And that's a, yeah. And so no cost, but they want your information. First of all, that's what the department gets out of this. And secondly, yeah, there are some legal, if you sign for that data exchange, read the stuff. There's legal requirements on who can access that information. You know, there's requirements on how you can use that information. There's some open legal questions. You know, you can certainly use it for any kind of tax administration, but should you be using it for fire alarm inspections? Arguably not. So don't just read that stuff. I worked at the Department of Revenue. They make you take a class every year and they threaten you with prison if you share people's taxpayer information. Don't mess around with that Department of Revenue taxpayer information. They're serious about it.
And
and that's sort of the tricky business there too. So if we get let's say we get the address of somebody who, this is just for licensing. So we get an address of somebody who isn't licensed with the city, but is registered with Airbnb. We want to be able to use that information to go to them to identify that property and say, you need to get a license with the city to operate. It's an enforcement issue. So do these secrecy, issues come into play to restrict? If we have information that we can't use, it's kind of useless. So
there's a fee associated with the registration. Is that fee a tax? That is a question for your city attorney, and I don't want to try and answer it here. Let's have a conversation offline about it. But the Department of Revenue has very conservative views on how you can use that taxpayer information to confirm taxes. But we could have a conversation about it. And but I'd rather the Department of Revenue was not in the room and that our attorneys were instead. So
thank you.
So one more before we get off here. We're at the end of our time. And I really want to respect you guys' time. We've gotten some great questions. There's a question: would the data get to the level of room nights? Like a hotel has 100 rooms, 30-day month would have 3,000 theoretical room nights available, and say 2,500 room nights are actually booked. Do you know the answer to that, Marcus?
We don't have that data currently. That was one of the.
Will you have it once you start getting the address level stuff, or no?
Well, we would have to start requesting that from the providers, and I'm not sure we can at this point require that data. And if you can't require it, I'm not sure how many of them would share it. But we know that it's a request that was submitted earlier, and we are working to figure out how can we assist with that kind of data that is wanted.
Okay, stay tuned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that just getting the address level information was a fight that took cases in other states, court decisions, all kinds of stuff, and some great work by the city of Portland, all that. Can the secrecy document we have on file for marijuana tax collections be used for this as well? And this is the last question I'm going to take.
No.
Okay, no. All right, fair enough.
So, the one thing I want to say is that this is the Cadillac, and the marijuana program's the Ford Pinto. We may try to improve the marijuana program with this new Cadillac version of local taxes, but I've seen a lot of names here that I recognize from the marijuana program, and I just wanted you guys to put a face to my name. So.
And I'm gonna, thank you, Kelvin. I appreciate that. And I'm gonna, say that, just to keep this car analogy going a little bit longer, the Department of Revenue has been driving this car for a while, right? And now they're putting on new wheels, they're putting in the new, they're upgrading, right? This is the Resto mod or whatever on the car, but
Turbocharged.
Thank you, Tara. They've been doing the state lodging tax, so this is not new business to them. They have been working with these taxpayers. They understand this program very well. So unlike marijuana, where we were standing up everything all at once, and it was kind of the Wild West. This is things are a little bit more dialed in this time, for better or worse. So they definitely know what they're doing. So okay, with that, we got to end this call at some point, and I got to say thank you so much to everyone. First of all, thanks for thanks. Well, first of all, thanks to Denise for keeping the stuff going in the background, making sure I don't miss people, keeping people out of the waiting room. Thank you to AOC for getting this out. I hope we had some good county participation as well on this call. Thanks to Tyler. But obviously, most of all, thanks to everybody from the Department of Revenue, Marcus, Tierra, Kelvin, but also some of the folks who are on the call, that Jim and Andy who are listening, and thinking about how they're going to go back and kind of, answer some of these questions that you guys have and make sure that, some of these issues around zip codes and whatnot that get resolved, because obviously we got to make sure everybody pays their share and not a dollar more, right? So, these kind of things will get sorted out. But really, really thankful to the department for taking so much time, out of your day and prepping up for this thing. And we just really appreciate it. So, look forward to a webpage coming on the LOC website. And, we'll have all this information there for you, a recording if you want to go back and read some of Matt's bad jokes or whatever. But anyway, really, really appreciate it. Anything else, Marcus? Anything for the good? No, you got it?
No, we're good. I really appreciate all the participation.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. And I hope you got something out of this call. We'll keep doing these informational calls, but until next time, thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.